All right, Pete, the meeting here.
Welcome to the Town of Colonie Planning Board meeting. We have one item on the agenda. We hope everyone is safe and sound at home and staying busy and getting exercise and doing all that kind of stuff. These are special times, and we're trying out a new mechanism here that allows us with the shelter at home. The project today is the Donna Drive subdivision. This is going to be a presentation. We are going to give you a presentation primarily by Sean McGuire, who's the head of our department, and Joe Grasso, our town designated engineer. We will also provide for public comment. I think without further ado, I'll just turn it back to you, Sean. If you could, you and Joe Grasso, if you can work out the presentation. I will say this: the board left with Sean McGuire and Joe Grasso the task of working out a remediation plan. This is a plan that they've worked hard on. I've participated in parts of it. Other board members have had input. I'll let Sean describe the plan and take it away from here. I guess that's probably the best way to do it.
Sure. Thanks, Pete. Everybody can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, so just circling back to our last meeting, our town attorney, Mike Majuli, briefed the board on the situation that occurred at 100 Donna Drive with the conservation subdivision there. So I won't go back through that because I think that was pretty well established at the last meeting. Although at that meeting, the board did provide myself and the town designated engineer, Joe Grasso from CHA, with some direction to establish and develop a plan to present to you tonight. And so that's what we're going to do is we'll walk through that. You should see on your screen right now a site plan that was developed by CHA, Joe Grasso as the town designated engineer. So I'm going to ask Joe to walk through that plan, and then we'll go through and we'll discuss the recommendations I have for the board.
Thanks, Sean. Can everybody hear me okay, Sean?
Yes.
Okay. There were two other exhibits that I presented at the last meeting that I just wanted to touch on. One was a plan that showed where the limits of clearing and grading had exceeded the limit shown on the approved subdivision plan. We also identified areas of the site that we did not investigate prior to the last meeting. And then there was another exhibit, you may recall, that showed additional clearing and grading that they wanted to do on the lots that they thought they would need to build out the lots and maintain the drainage patterns as shown on the approved plan. So the other thing that we showed at the last meeting was some photos that we had taken from various viewpoints showing where the additional clearing and grading had occurred that we had documented. And those were the things that the planning board told us to focus on when we were trying to, create a remediation plan. So really this, we had the opportunity to kind of look at the whole project comprehensively as a result of the feedback that we got from the planning board and some additional public comment. So I'm going to walk through actually the, different parts of the subdivision plan to orient everybody and give everybody an understanding as to where the additional landscaping is proposed and where it's not. So the other thing that we did since the last planning board meeting is we've been out to the site a couple of times trying to not only understand the areas that we previously investigated, but also understand other areas of the site where there were basically unobstructed views, between the proposed home sites and the existing adjacent residences, because we thought it was important. That's where we should be focusing our efforts. So you'll recall that the overall subdivision includes 24 new home sites. And that's important to know because there were a few lots that during our investigation, we determined did not need additional landscaping over and above that was shown on the approved subdivision plan. So Sean, if you can focus in on lots 47 to 53, those are to the south side of the site. So these four lots basically back up against an existing school, an existing church. And between the existing trees that are going to be left there and then 4 additional trees that were previously approved as part of the original subdivision, we did not feel it was warranted to add any additional landscaping there, and that we would focus our efforts on the additional lots. So before I go into what the proposed landscaping is, I do want to talk about what the applicant had originally shown on the approved subdivision plan. And Sean, there's a typical lot layout more towards the right side of the plan. If you can pan over to that. Keep panning. And if you can pan up on the view, you'll see a typical lot layout. It's just coming into view now. Pan up a little bit more. There you go. So it's up at the top of the screen. So what this typical lot layout showed was landscaping that was approved on the original subdivision plan, and then included 2 5 to 6 foot high Norway spruces, as well as 2 dogwoods. Those are located on each of the 24 lots in to the rear of the lot. And then also there's 2 street trees proposed per lot. So basically we took into account that these plants were already going to be installed. And what we did was we added additional landscaping in addition to this landscaping that was originally proposed. So Sean, if you can pan over to lots like 42 to 48. So if you look at lots 42 to 48 on your screen now, what we've shown is additional landscaping across the rear of those lots. We tried to keep the proposed landscaping within the deed restricted areas that would be restricted from any future clearing. You know, based on the density that we were trying to achieve and the amount of screening, some of the larger deciduous trees we couldn't squeeze into that deed restricted area because we felt it was too dense, and you know, the growth of all the trees could result in some die-off. So for the most part, we kept the proposed landscaping in the deed restricted area, but in some cases you'll see the large deciduous trees that we've got just outside the deed restricted area across the backs of those 4 lots. You can pan over to lots 50 to 52. Okay, lots 50 and 52 right in the center of your screen. These were 2 lots that we had, you know, previously taken some photos of. There's some existing mature trees in the back of these lots that is going to be retained. We didn't feel like it was necessary to add any more large trees, but we did add some understory deciduous trees and shrubs across to these lots, just to have it look more natural and fill in with what we were doing across the rest of the subdivision. So you can continue to pan over towards the north, Sean. We'll talk about lots, you know, 54 all the way over to 60. These are additional lots where there had been clearing and grading past the approved limit line. So we added additional trees and shrubs, both coniferous and deciduous, within the backyards of these lots, as well as some larger deciduous trees just outside the deed restricted areas. Lot 60 around the corner, there are some existing spruce trees there to remain that we could take advantage of, as well as, like I said, the 4 additional trees that were shown on the approved subdivision plan. But we did want to, you know, provide additional screening along the side yard of lot 60, where that lot butts up against another existing adjacent residential structure. So we did propose additional trees there. Moving across the street to lot 75, this was an area that we hadn't previously identified, but there's some, you know, open views between these lots and the adjacent residences. So we added some additional understory plantings underneath the large maple tree that has been retained. And then across the backs of these lots, we added a similar density of trees and shrubs across the backs of each of these lots. And Sean, if then you can just pan across to lots, 71 all the way down to 57. Again, it was a consistent palette. There's some wide open views between the proposed lots and the adjacent residences. So again, we added additional, landscaping within the deed restricted areas, as well as some larger deciduous trees, just outside the deed restricted area. And then if you can focus on lots 57 and 59, Sean. So these were two lots that do have some existing trees remaining in the deed restricted area. So we were able to work around those. The approved subdivision plan also had those 4 trees per lot that we were able to take advantage of. And then we were able to add some additional lower lying deciduous and evergreen shrubs to those. So if you can pan up, Sean, to the plant schedule, I just want to go through, a comprehensive list of all the plants that are shown. So all of these symbols are keyed off to the plan. So, like I had said, we did a combination of coniferous and deciduous trees and shrubs. The plant schedule shows the size of the trees and shrubs at the time of planting. So if you can pan over a little bit more, just so I can see the quantities. There you go. So, a combination of Norway spruces and white spruces, those are 12-foot height. We tried to pick plants that were fast growing, that would provide some immediate impact, that were hardy for the location where they're being planted, and also trees that were, readily available. We did confirm with Northern Nurseries, which is a large wholesaler in the town of Colonie for nursery stock. They provide many of the landscape installations in the region. And we're able to confirm that all of these plants are readily available from them. But we tried to, go with some pretty significantly sized trees just so that, we could get some significant buffering right off the get-go, but also they could fill in over time and continue to, to provide appropriate separation in the future, and that they wouldn't choke each other out. So going down the list, we've shown the deciduous trees. You may recall that the first symbol and the third symbol under the deciduous trees were the ones that were street trees. Those were approved as part of the original subdivision. We've added those to the list because we've recommended an increase in the size of those street trees from 2.5-inch caliper to 3.5-inch caliper. And those so that it would, we did that so that it would create more of a grown-in look at the initial time of plantings. Those trees, because they're in the front yards, would be something that would be installed later at a later date when each lot went for, up for, its own house construction. But we think that increasing the size of those trees is important because not only does it, improve the streetscape as you drive through the neighborhood, but as you look across the whole subdivision from the adjacent residences, this will create more of a separation, between the development as you look across, which I think is really a really important feature of the revised plan. And then the middle deciduous tree symbol is the sugar maples that are that you'll see across the landscape remediation plan across the backs of the lots, typically outside of the deed restricted areas, because these are going to be, large, fast growing trees. So we wanted to not create an overcrowding with the additional trees and shrubs in the back. And you can see the quantities of each plant, shown on the quantity table there. And just to recall that the October Glory red maples and the Bradford flowering pears, there's 24 of each of those. And that's because one of each was shown on the original approved subdivision plan. So that's that common number. And then, further on down, we've added a bunch of deciduous shrubs deciduous and evergreen shrubs. These are all planted within the deed restricted area, so these can continue to fill in over time. And we've got a variety of sizes from 2 feet all the way up to 10 feet. So, when you look at all of the additional landscape plants that were added over and above what was shown on the approved subdivision plan, it's a little over 400 plants. It's 413 because those 48 were the street trees that we had increased the size of. So when you look at all the plants that were either modified or added to, we're up to 461 plants. So, we weren't trying to focus on a particular number of plants per lot, but obviously, like I said, there were 20 lots that we added plants to. So there's about an average of 20 additional trees and shrubs per lot. And also we weren't focused on a particular value, but we did, look at the value of the plant material as well as the installation costs. And we value the overall installation at a little over $200,000. So it's a significant amount, but we felt it was commensurate with the charge of the planning board coming out of the last meeting. Unless there's any questions on the specific landscape plan, Sean, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about, some additional implementation items.
Pete, did you want to take any questions now from anybody?
No, can you talk about how you're going to ensure that the plantings are actually going to occur? What your recommendation is from the department?
Sure. So as Joe, covered sort of the background and the conditions, like you said, that this plan includes more than 400 new trees and shrubs across the site, which is pretty significant. Some of the important changes there was that we asked that the size of the plantings be increased, both in height and in caliber. And so the coniferous trees are measured in height, the deciduous trees measured in caliber. And so we did ask for that plan to include an increase to mitigate against the clearing and grading where you have the existing trees on the site, knowing that, getting back a tree of the size that was there is pretty much impossible, but that we get to the limits that we could with the available stock that we can find in the area nurseries. Most of the plants you'll see are proposed in the deed restricted area, which we talked about. The deciduous trees that are outside that deed restricted area fall into those areas of the limits of grading and clearing. Because of those types of trees, we thought that they were best suited at the rear of the lot to provide additional layer of screening, additional heights and stacking that existed. And we believe that the chance for their removal is limited versus putting smaller trees and shrubs forward of the deed restricted line. We tried to really, they asked Joe to focus his efforts on the deed restricted line into plants that will remain because they won't be touched. Again, we talked about the upsizing of the street trees on the lot from 2.5 inches caliper, which is what's in the town code for a minimum of street trees, to 3.5 inch caliper. And so again, the recommendation, that I bring to you tonight has a number of points to it. So first is having the applicant remediate the site per the approved landscape remediation plan that you'll approve. We presented one to you tonight subject to your modifications, but they include 14 12-foot Norway spruces, 24 12-foot white spruces, 42 3.5 inch caliber fall fiesta sugar maples, 49 2-foot northern bayberries, 116 3-foot summer wine Seward 9-barks, 75 4-foot purple leaf sand cherries, 8 4-foot American cranberry bushes, 55-foot Chinese junipers, and 35 10-foot moon glow junipers. The street trees across the site would be increased from 2.5 inches to 3.5 inch caliber, and those include 24 3.5 inch caliber October Glory red maples, 24 3.5 inch caliber Bradford flowering pears. We'll require the applicant to continue planting the 2 5-foot to 6-foot Norway spruces, and the 2 dogwoods that were previously shown on the typical conservation sublot landscape package plan that was on the approved site plan, and it also appears in this remediation plan. The total plantings across the site shall be 557 in total. Just ask that any deviations from the schedule of plantings be approved by the town at your direction. We ask that the remediation work to the rear yards, that's all the work including the street trees, be completed on or before June 15th, 2020. So that way we get that planning done during the current planning season. And again, any extensions to this date, we just ask that the planning board authorize the town to approve any extensions. Given the current situation, you know, we don't know where we're going to be by then, but we'd like to at least establish a date now. Finally, we ask that the planning board require the applicant warranty the rear yard landscaping for 1 year to begin upon the issuance of certificate of occupancy. Let me correct that they warranty all the landscaping for 1 year upon the issuance of certificate of occupancy. And so in consideration of the accepted landscape remediation plan tonight and the receipt of a $100,000 cash escrow with the town of Colonie, which represents about 50% of the estimated value of this plan, we recommend that the stop work order is partially lifted to allow the construction to continue on the model homes that were already started on the existing lots under contract to date, and the installation of all landscaping shown in the rear yards on the approved remediation plan. We just note that the installation of the street trees may be deferred and completed as each home is completed. We recommend that the final agreement with the town require inspections done part-time throughout the landscape plant installation to ensure that the proper installation techniques with random spot inspections throughout the warranty period to ensure appropriate maintenance. This should be done by the town, the TDE, or an independent arborist or landscape architect. An important note here that is, if the builder or vendor elects to work during the shutdown directed by Governor Cuomo in response to COVID-19, we would suggest that we require that before any work begins, a safety plan be submitted to the town documenting the practices used during construction to limit community contact spread of the virus. As you know, last week the governor made a change to its executive order on non-essential work that initially addressed construction as an essential service, but changed that to really put a limitation except for emergency work or on existing site to secure it, so it would be a safe site. And so once the remediation plan is complete on all yards and following the acceptance by planning and economic development of the remedial landscaping plan, we would recommend that the whole stop work order is lifted on the remaining lots and the rest of the site's infrastructure. At that time, we would suggest reducing the cash escrow, and I suggest $25,000 be held until the end of a 1-year warranty period, or the existing performance bond on the infrastructure improvements is increased by a similar value. And then finally, within 30 days of the 1-year warranty period, a follow-up inspection be done by the town or a TDE to determine if any plants need to be replaced. 1 year after the replacement of the plants identified by the town or the TDE, that can remain in cash escrow is released, or the performance bond is reduced accordingly. And I do want to also add a piece in here. There was a discussion at the last meeting about the termination of the fence for the stormwater management area on the pre-existing that would occur in the middle of a pre-existing lot on Alfred Drive. And we just asked that the planning board allow my department to work with all parties on a solution that will allow us to consider changing the placement of that, so that way we don't have that termination in the middle. And so that's what I have for each night in terms of our recommendation, as well as the plan from the TDE.
Okay,
turn it back to you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I want to make one thing. I want to make a couple points. One is we prioritize this meeting, I think, for a good reason. The reason being, we wanted the plantings to go in this spring, if possible. So we wanted to hopefully get this thing finalized so we can remediate the site during the planting season. I also want to mention that, I'm not going to interpret the governor's order, but my understanding is single family construction is not an essential service. And we're not granting permission for the applicant to do the construction. that's, that's up to the governor to grant permission. And I know we have the town attorney here, Mike Majuli. Mike, do you want to add to that, or is that sufficient?
No, that's that the builder, the developer has to be absolutely clear that we are not giving him authority to do anything in contravention of Executive Order 202.1. And the way I understand that executive order, new construction for single family homes is not essential. And so, all we are accomplishing tonight is essentially agreeing to the remediation plan and nothing more. That the planning board is approving the terms and conditions of the plan. However, as far as actual construction work goes, putting people on the site to do the work, that's solely controlled by the governor's executive order.
Okay, thank you. We have several members of the public that have asked to speak, and we can turn to them, or if any board members are obviously going to get their chance to chime in. If there's anything that any board member wants to clarify at this point. Yes, hi, Chief.
Sean, you had mentioned he was able, within the governor's plan, he could start construction again on the 2 models that he had already started. But I thought in previous conversations that you were also going to let him go with additional contracted houses that he had already under contract.
Yeah, notwithstanding the governor's order, which supersedes any action here tonight.
Right.
The suggestion was to allow him to continue work on his model homes and anything that he under contract at the time of the stop work order.
Okay, so that is included then.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay, because that's not what you said before. That's why
I apologize. Thank you.
Okay.
But no, I'm not sure I understand this. We're not giving him permission to begin work on the model homes or any other home whatsoever. The only thing we're doing tonight is agreeing to the mitigation plan. I don't think we can give him permission to work given the terms of the executive order.
Well, I think what we're saying, Mike, is that we're going to recommend lifting the stop work order on those lots. He still has to deal, he's still under whatever prohibitions exist under the governor's executive order.
Right, but what I thought I heard Sean say was that we were giving him permission to go ahead with construction on the model homes. That is not what we're doing. We will lift the stop work orders, and I will recommend to the building department that they reinstate the building permits. But other than that, we don't have the authority to supersede the executive order in any way. He has to comply with the executive order in all respects.
Right, and maybe my audio cut out there, Mike. I started out by saying notwithstanding the governor's executive order, which would supersede any authority the planning board would grant. That certainly, comes in first and foremost, that the governor's executive order limits non-essential activities, including residential construction, then that would remain in place. That would come into consideration first.
As long as everybody's clear on that, I don't want any misunderstanding. There's already been some, that's what started this whole thing, was an apparent misunderstanding. And I want it to be absolutely clear that all we're doing is lifting the stop work order and reinstating the building permits, but the builder is still under an absolute duty to strictly follow the terms of the executive order.
Okay, thank you. Anything else the board wants clarified before we turn it over? Okay, we're doing the best we can here, and Sean has provided me a list of people who have requested to speak. So hopefully we'll get this and it's accurate. Susan Laurillard, are you there?
Let me just find her in the list here, and then I'm going to unmute her. And I would say that if we call your name and I can't find you, I just ask you to type into the chat window. All right, Susan, you should be available to speak now. Susan, if you're not able to speak, if you just type your comments and I'll relay them to the board.
Do you have her as being registered? Right.
I see her in the meeting, but I don't see that her audio is connected, so she might not have given the,
Okay.
let's
Well,
see,
oh.
unless she's on a phone line here, and that's the question.
Okay.
So here, I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be a trust issue. I'm gonna unmute everybody and I'll ask Susan to speak. Susan?
Hi, Sean. I'm on the
All right.
phone line.
I see who you are. Hold on one second. Now let's try that again. All right, Susan, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Susan.
Yes, hi. My question had to do with what landscaping or why landscaping was not proposed along lots 29, 27, 25, 23, and 21 Alfred. Hi, good evening.
Yep, we hear you. So the question was
yeah.
about the
Not the conclusion of her remark. Make sure she concludes all her remarks. I think it'll be easier.
Yeah, that was my first question, had to do with that. And I'm glad to see that you are going to be requiring an escrow amount for the landscaping. Will there be a written agreement reflecting this remediation plan in addition to the meeting minutes of the planning board?
Okay, are you
Those
done?
are my questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, there will be an escrow agreement, and Joe, either Joe or Sean, if you can maybe put the map up.
I can speak to it, Peter.
Okay.
Sean, are you able to call up the landscape remediation plan again?
Yep, let me bring just 1 second, please.
So it's in the lower left corner, our lots 23 through 29 along Alfred. Yeah, so we didn't propose any additional landscaping between the subdivision and lots 23 through 29 on Alfred Drive because they're adjacent to the town stormwater management area. And there's a number of existing trees that you can see on the plan that are being retained here.
Well, these people.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so these are those are the lots there you can see along Alfred Drive, 23, 25, 27, and 29. Each of those lots back up against the proposed stormwater management area. And there's a number of existing trees that have been preserved between those lots and the new subdivision development, including the road. So we didn't feel it was warranted to plant any additional trees there. We wanted to focus on where there were open views between new home sites and existing adjacent residences.
Okay, thank you. Is Susan Weber signed up?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You are so lucky you can't see me. It's okay. So I want to, first thing I want to say is I was very gratified that that you planning board members were so upset about the fact that the developer or his people seemingly ignored your approved plan. And I am really glad that you required the TDE and Sean McGuire to go out there and do a really, really good job coming up with a fine remediation plan. And it's, I'm hoping that another part of this may be some kind of a penalty in addition to this. But I have a question and then a couple more things. I noticed that along the outer boundary of lots 73 and 75, if Sean, if you wanted to bring that up so we could see that.
No, we'll ask Sean to do what he needs to do. If you can make your statement, we'll appreciate it.
Okay, I noticed that a quite wide area of remediation trees are suggested for that area. And I wanted to make the point that in that area, none of there were no trees there before that were removed. And so this was not an area that needed to be remediated. If the developer wants to make a lovely place, a lovely barrier there between the lots he's selling and the lot he still owns, by the way, then that would be up to him. And I would suggest that the rest of those plantings there that are quite extensive be placed on the in the other areas where he trashed the deed restricted lands in violation of the law. Okay, then I would like to also bring up the fact that I think Mr. Majuli has said several times that there have been some misunderstandings here with regard to the development here. And I would like to just draw the board's attention to a reason that this may be the case and just show you that this has happened on other sites, other developments, other projects as well. And I would point out that what happens is after your planning board approves a plan, the PEDD staff makes changes in the field, including changes to stormwater, tree cutting, and those sorts of things. So I don't know if this is going to be the case under Mr. McGuire. One would hope not, but it was extremely clear that this happened under Mr. LaCivita. And I would like to give you a couple of examples very quickly.
Okay, Sean, can you mute her now? I'm not going to have her defame Joe LaCivita.
I'm not defaming him. I'm pointing out some
You're getting a little far afield of what this project is.
Look,
So let's stick to this project.
Peter, let me say this, all right? I just want to make it clear that the developer claimed that there was misunderstanding.
Right.
There was no misunderstanding on the part of the town.
Right.
But in his defense, when he came to us after I issued the stop work orders, he had claimed that it was a misunderstanding. It's not that I'm acknowledging that there was one. It was something that he alleged to the town. That's all I had said.
Yes, and I agree with you.
And again, this is not a public hearing, Peter.
Yeah.
All right, if you're going to cut me off, I will stop talking. I will write you a letter.
Cutting you off.
Ignore.
I'm asking you to stay up. You can continue to talk, but let's talk about the landscape plan for this project.
I just wanted to point out that a similar situation occurred with Maxwell Village, where the developer thought.
Okay. We're not talking about a different project here. I totally disagree with you. They're entirely different circumstances. Do you have any other comments on the remediation plan that we're talking about tonight?
Looks really good.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Pete, this is Joe. Could I speak to the landscape plan regarding lots 73 and 75? Sean, if you could call up that plan and focus on those areas. Susan, I appreciate your comments regarding the strength of the plan, and and obviously you've taken a close view of what's proposed and compared it to the original plan. So lot 73 and 75 is on the far side to the north.
I just want to know, I did meet Susan, not because, just because I believe that she was done speaking. If she, if that's not the case, let me know and I'll raise that note with Peter.
So obviously the plan that we have up here is just the proposed landscape remediation plan. But when at the last meeting, we had shown the additional areas of clearing and grading although our investigation didn't focus over on these areas, lots 73 and 75, there were two singular trees on each of those lots that had been removed without authorization, which the builder had told us when we were doing our site investigation. And then when we compared the new limits of clearing and grading to the approved plan, we saw that there was some additional work proposed in the rear yards. And also when we did our investigation on numerous occasions, we could tell that there were wide unobstructed views from these new lots to those adjacent lots along Sand Creek Road. So we took it upon ourselves, and hearing the feedback from the planning board, that we felt like additional landscaping was in fact warranted in the rear yards of these two lots. So we felt like it would make an overall, more attractive subdivision and provide appropriate buffering to the adjacent neighbors. All right, Pete.
Thank you. Clay Laporte, can we connect?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can
Right.
see you too.
All right, great. Okay. Just got one question before I forget to Sean. I had been in, we talked, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I guess. Time is in a warp right now, the way things are going.
It sure is. It sure is.
Yeah. All right. So I just a question to Sean. He doesn't have to answer it now, but just as our conversation in the office there where he works, I just wonder if he had got out to the site yet or not to check out my lot in the back where the retainer wall is, to take a look at that, to see if, because we were talking about the fence, the retainer wall. So I just wondered if he had gotten out there to take a look at that. That's all as far as that's concerned. And I also did talk to him about lot 60 that borders along one side of my property. And on the original plan, it was shown to keep all the pine trees there, or spruce trees, whatever you want to call it. I guess they're spruce, not pine. All right, so there was like, I don't know, there's about 7 or 8 of them there. And it was mentioned that pretty much they were all going to be taken out except the ones right on the perimeter of the fence, right where the fence is. So that would be taking more than half of those trees out, which they were all slated to leave there. So I'm just wondering if that's still going to happen. And I guess one other person mentioned something about the last person mentioned something about any, other than you guys stepping up and having the trees planted and larger trees. That's all great. And she mentioned she's just wondering if there was any fines you guys have decided you're going to levy. Or they're not going to be any fines. It's just the trees, putting in the trees is going to be the fine. I don't know. And then also when they put the fencing in down on the retainer ponds, once again, they're working along the boundary line to put the fence up. Obviously, they got to get in there and put them up. Okay, but they pretty much, I wouldn't say clear cut it, but they took all the shrubs out, and I don't know how many small trees because I don't walk into there. But you can see where it's extensively cleared out, so they can get in there with whatever equipment they were using to install the fence. So once again, encroachment within the 15-foot boundary, removing stuff that really shouldn't have been removed. And I guess the last quick things is at the last meeting that we had, I don't know if any of you on the board are aware of it or not, but out in the hallway there was a confrontation out there, pretty verbal, pretty confrontational, threatening type of brought forth upon the residents by some outside person or persons, a couple of people. I don't know who they are. They wouldn't identify themselves, but I kind of have suspicions who they may be. But they were threatening, swearing at one of the residents of the town, and I don't know if that needs to be addressed and why they were threatening one of the members of the town. And just the last thing is, even with with the last papers that were sent out to notify this meeting today, I guess that they're sent out by the civil engineer office. Okay. So they were sent out, and all the other ones they sent out before. We all got those, but this last time, for reasons unknown, they decided to send them out and put them in mailboxes without any postage on it, which is a federal offense.
You all set with your comments?
That's my comment, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sean, can I let you handle the response and use Joe Grasso to the extent you need to?
Yeah, Pete, this is Joe. I can speak to the, what's proposed on lot 60, if Sean wants to call that up. So this plan shows the proposed house location and the associated grading on lot 60. And you're correct, Mr. Laporte. There are some spruce trees there right in the location of the proposed house that are going to be removed. If they haven't been removed, I can't remember. And I was just out there today.
Oh, they're still there.
I think there's 5 or 6 spruce trees that extend into the lot that are going to be removed. And then there's about 8 or 10 spruce trees along your back property line that are going to be retained. And then, so we took advantage of that. We also focused, our landscaping along the side property line, which obviously doesn't provide tremendous benefit to a lot, but it'll help, create a more desirable view within the development. And then we did add some larger deciduous trees across the back as well. And, our thought is that with the 4 additional trees that are proposed by the applicant, that'll help fill in some of those gaps across the rear property line. But they are proposing to remove a few of those spruce trees that jut into the lot where the house is located.
And then I guess, this part I'll speak to is a question about fines. I don't believe, and I'll defer to our town attorney, it's the place of the planning board to levy fines. But what we did look at was how we could develop such a plan that had a greater public benefit in the form of increased landscaping. And so that was my rationale in requesting that these trees that are proposed here be increased from 2.5-inch caliper to 3.5-inch caliper trees. That's much more significant investment in terms of the landscaping going in, as well as the actual what it takes to plant those. And Joe, and I just, because you know this better than I do, just to give the public an idea of the difference between a 2.5-inch caliper versus a 3.5-inch caliper, what would be the height on a deciduous maple tree of that type?
Yeah, so a 2.5-inch caliper tree is generally going to be about 10 feet tall on average. And I would say a 3.5-inch caliper tree would probably be in the 14 or 15 foot tall, and there's quite a bit of age difference between the two. A 2.5-inch caliper tree is probably in the 4 to 5 years, and a 3.5-inch is probably in the 6 to 7 year range. And obviously the value, is exponential. So there's, quite a bit of value difference to go from a 2.5 to a 3.5-inch caliper tree. You're probably adding, a few $100s to the purchase price, as well as, doubling that for the installed cost. So, each tree, to go from 2.5 to 3.5-inch caliper is about an additional $600 of installed value. So.
All right. So that's so I that was our my rationale in that discussion. So I think did we leave anything off there, Pete, that you'd like us to address and follow up on?
Well, you talked about the retaining wall and whether you visited the site.
Right. Thank you. So we discussed this in terms of the retaining wall that was on the initial plan, and that did not obviously the grading and clearing occurred, and those walls are not there anymore. And it just, excuse me while I'm trying to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time here and get over to the plan. Because the landscape has already been stabilized, I think it was a wiser investment to redirect resources that we'd have the developer commit to restore to mitigating this into actual plantings and a greenscape here. I think just going back in and restoring retaining walls where the work has already been done, it was sort of a trade-off here. So, it's our recommendation just to leave the grading as is and use the resources that we would have needed to do that landscaping or to do that grading and for retaining walls to actually invest in the landscaping and in the natural environment.
Okay. Richard Notke, can you get Mr. Notke?
Yep. Let's see. I'm going to unmute everybody again. Okay. Mr. Naki, are you there? I have unmuted everybody, Peter, but maybe if Mr. Naki is on here and just has it connected, if he could just type in the chat window and maybe we can come back to him.
Okay, Nancy Gary.
Everybody.
Nancy's unmuted. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yes, thank you. I just had a quick question on the plantings. I think it's obviously an excellent job. The limits of clearing and grubbing that are shown along the houses along Alfred Drive. So is it my understanding that the contractor will not be allowed to go past those limits of clearing and grubbing, and they're just gonna add additional trees along those lots? That's all. That's my only question.
Okay, Joe and
Yeah,
Sean.
Yeah, this is Joe Grasso. I'll take that. Yeah, based on my site inspections, I think that the clearing that's going to take place has already been done. So I think what this plan shows is, clearing pretty much up to the deed restricted line. On lots 57 and 59, there's a few trees that I think remain that are outside of that deed restricted line, but I think pretty much he's cleared up where he's going to, or, he's obviously pushed a lot of fill back there that I think when he gets into, developing the lots and regrading the lots and creating that swale, some of that fill will be pulled back a little bit, but I think the clearing work is basically done. And then what we've tried to do is, focus the additional plants within the 15 feet, deed restricted area that goes across the backs of each of those lots, except for those larger deciduous trees. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Kirsten Colber.
Go ahead, Kirsten.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say that I think you guys are doing a great job under all these circumstances. And
Kirsten, I'm sorry, it's hard to hear. You might have to lean into the computer.
oh,
She
sorry.
said you're doing a great job.
Yes, Sean, you're doing a great job. Thanks, Peter. Well, that includes all the board members, please, and everybody involved. But at this point, you have really basically answered all my questions. So I'll leave it for another time, but I thank you very much for asking.
Thank you. Richard Notke, did you find him, Sean, or no?
I did not get him in here.
Okay. Mary Ellen Larini.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you're good. Thank
Okay.
you.
A couple of clarification questions for me. I think the plan is a really good one. My understanding of the reason why there was a designation in the first place of a no-cut zone was to, in part, mitigate any erosion and runoff. And so the greenery and the growth that was left was supposed to help avoid that. So some of it was cut without permission. And this plan obviously replants a lot of it to put back some of that growth. So my questions are, in terms of anything that remains from the previous designated no-cut zones, this doesn't change that, correct? Those areas that remain still can't be cut. And this plan just adds plantings to put back what was done and maybe add a little bit more to other areas, but it doesn't change the fact that the prior approved plan, to the extent that no cut zones still exist, they still have to be left alone.
I'm pretty sure that's correct, but I'll let Sean and Joe answer that.
along those lines, given that the purpose of the no-cut zone was to mitigate runoff, I think to those lots that butt up against the school, I think it was like 47, 51, and 53, something like that. Were there supposed to be no-cut zones there and now it's not under this plan, or were there never supposed to be? In other words, why isn't there planting there to mitigate runoff? That would be my second question. Third, as far as the plantings, are they going to be like professionally done? The purpose of this is to, again, make sure that this whole restitution takes, that the growth takes, that the root systems take. So are the plantings going to be done professionally, and with the warranty covering the 1-year warranty, is that enough time to make sure that the plantings take? Will there be a maintenance contract or somebody responsible for watering and caring for these throughout the period to make sure that your whole point of doing this, that the trees live and the brush lives, so as to accomplish the result of having a decent amount of growth to mitigate runoff? And then finally, if you could just explain the escrow again. I didn't quite catch what amounts were in place for how long.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Joe,
this is Joe, Pete. Sean, if you can call up the plan and focus on lots 47 to 53 over on the left side of the plan. But those were great comments, and I apologize if I miss some of them. But, yes, the no-cut deed restricted area is not changing. Those limits are still as per the approved plan. Obviously, based on our investigation and what we've presented, is there has been work in some areas or in many areas within those deed restricted areas, but the restriction remains in place as of today. And other than adding these plants, there should never be any cutting or clearing of vegetation or mowing of grasses within those areas. So that's the way those areas should remain. And that's a reason why we tried to focus our plants there, so that it's not at the discretion of a future landowner whether or not these plants should continue to be there and provide a buffer, to the adjacent neighbors. Lots 47 and 53, there are deed restricted areas across the backs of each of those lots. And you're right, one of the indirect benefits of a deed restricted area is there's no soil disturbance, so it does reduce the amount of potential for erosion. But I think the primary purpose was to either protect trees or provide an area that new trees were going to be added that would be protected from being cut in the future. And we chose not to add any additional trees to the back of lots 47 to 53 because of the existing trees that are already protected within the deed restricted area, and the lack of any adjacent neighbors behind those lots, and the fact that the applicant is already on the hook to plant 4 trees within the rear yards of each of those lots. So those are the reasons why we took that effort, and we wanted to focus it on other areas of the plan that would provide much more significant benefit to the adjacent neighbors. So Sean, if you want to talk on the landscape installation and how that would be controlled.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we hold that question, and because I know board members have concerns about that as well. And so we'll go over that when we turn it over to the board. We'll have Sean go over that, and then we'll talk.
Did you want me to? I think there's a question about the escrow. Do you want me to just explain what that will be?
If you
That's
can do
going
it
to be
quick.
part of my questions too, is about the escrow. So you may want to hold off on that.
Okay, all right.
Let's hold off till we turn it over to the board, but that'll be the first thing we talk about, and then we'll turn over the questions to the board. Okay. Richard Notke, did we get him or no?
No, we didn't get him. I checked my emails too. I don't have any notes from him, so maybe he didn't make it into the meeting.
Okay, we have a representative here from the applicant, right?
Yes.
Yes, Luigi from ABD.
Okay. What say you? That's the end of the public comment. What do you have anything you'd like to say or add or?
Yeah, just that, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just that, sounds like we're agreeable to the landscaping plan that's before us tonight. The one thing that, we just would like to clarify is, how soon we can get that stop work order lifted. The biggest issue out there right now, as we all know, there is a safety issue with National Grid. They've got open trenches. And now that this road is connected throughout the 2 subdivisions, people are walking the streets, and it's a safety concern that someone could fall into the open ditch. So the sooner we can get that stop work order lifted, the better for all of us.
Okay.
So as long as we can get to that tonight, that would be what we're looking for.
Well, we're going to, if this goes through, we're going to recommend lifting of the stop work order for those purposes and for the lots that have already been identified. But you still have to comply with the governor's executive order, as I'm sure you know.
Correct.
Okay. Let's back forward, and Sean, if you want to talk about the escrow account and what you recommend in terms of warranty and installation of the landscaping.
Right. So during the discussion, we wanted to have some guarantee at the town that the work would be completed and done per the plan. And we initially talked about a full value escrow, but we think that 50% escrow of the value of the work is sufficient. Certainly, the builder has an incentive to finish the job and to get these lots built and completed. And so the 100,000 my recommendation is a cash escrow deposited with the town for $100,000 would be sufficient to do that. And as I said, once all the rear lot mitigation has been completed, I would recommend reducing that escrow to recognize that, to release some of those funds, but continue to hold a smaller value to ensure that the street trees are completed, since the my recommendation includes an increased caliper to 3.5-inch street trees for both the Bradford pear and the maple that are in the remediation plan.
Now, what do you know about who's likely to install the plants, and what are we talking about in terms of warranty, and what you recommend in terms of warranty from the developer?
So, and I'll,
and maybe Joe wants to talk about the likelihood of things dying, or, because I know Joe's got a strong background in landscape architecture.
Yeah, here you go, Joe. Joe might be muted himself.
Okay. Got you back. Okay. Sorry about that. So just, in the landscape plants arena and landscaping, and based on my experience, the larger the plants are at the time of planting, the greater chance of die off within within the first few years. So we had to reach a balance between plants that are reasonably sized to provide the screening, but also not so large that we increase the risk that many were going to die off. Another thing that we find is that in any landscape installation of this type, it wouldn't be surprising that we could get 25% plant die off within the first year or so. And that's why we, are recommending a strong cash escrow for a 1-year warranty period. And why we've, proposed the variety of trees and shrubs and the density that we've got on the plan, knowing that, although most of the die off occurs within the first year, because of the shock from the transplant, some die off may continue to occur, years down the road through just, a variety of reasons. But, we took that all into consideration with our landscape approach, including the sizes, and I think the appropriate approach to a large cash escrow until all the plants are done, and then a reduced escrow throughout at least a 1-year warranty period is something that we're in strong support of.
Who's likely to do the install?
I would think it would, be because the applicant is a contractor, and I assume that he's got the equipment. It would be something that he was probably able to self-perform himself. I wouldn't be surprised that based on the scale of the landscape installation, that he brings in additional resources that are, you know, other landscape crews that he works with. You know, obviously he had some landscaping, you know, already proposed on the plan that I'm sure he was going to have done by either his own forces or additional crew. So it'll probably be a combination. But obviously, I think that's where the town's inspection and oversight of the process is something that's really important. You know, just to make sure things go as good as they can. You know, landscaping isn't rocket science, but you know, there's good ways to do it, and it's always in the interest of the developer here to, you know, take care of the plants throughout the 1 year warranty period, or as he's developing all these lots, because there's a significant cost to, you know, replacing these plants. And based on the scale of this installation, it's unlikely that he's going to get a warranty out of the nursery. It's going to be up to him to, you know, ensure that they're installed right and maintained right, so that there's a higher chance of survivability.
Okay, do any board members want to be heard on that?
I'd like to say something.
Okay.
I'm not so much concerned about the trees on the street, but the whole reason for this is because of they clear cut in the back, and we're going to be putting trees in there. And we are, as you said, Joe, we're going to be putting in 3.5 inch calipers. So if I understand it correctly, the nurseries don't warrant it. It's more of the contractor that would warrant it when they sell it out. But I think maybe instead of a year, I think maybe we should be looking at 2 years based on exactly what you just said. You know, you're going to lose some maybe in the first year, but you could very well lose something in the second year. After the second year, I think they would be rooted enough to where either they're going to make it or they're not. But I think personally, I think that we should extend that warranty. The contractor should give at least a 2 year from the time they plant it. And actually, we got it work here where they can't do anything until they get all those trees planted. So it's going to be 2 years from that point. And then as far as the escrow, I would like to see something more like in the neighborhood of $50,000 instead of 25, to ensure that we have money in there if we need it to put the trees back.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Anybody else like to speak on that issue?
Yeah, Peter, I do.
Yeah.
My feeling is that with those banks on 46 through 52, they're fairly steep. And all we need is a real good gully washer, and with all that sand, it's going to come down. So is the developer, is he going to put, you know, biodegradable mats down and sod it so we don't get that washout?
Joe Grasso, can you respond to that?
That's something we can look at. Typically, they're not proposing any slopes greater than 1-on-3. You know, when you get on like a 1-on-2 slope is when we typically start to look at, you know, erosion control protection. But that is something that, you know, I'm sure the applicant is aware of the need to stabilize those slopes. I highly doubt that they're looking to sod all of these lots. But, you know, the stabilizing the slopes is something that's strictly controlled by the town's stormwater management office. And, you know, they do weekly inspections on the stormwater management plan and, you know, the reestablishment of vegetation on all the lots until the development is completely built out. So it is something that's going to be controlled, but I'm not sure it meets the needs of the erosion control blankets at this time.
My concern was that some places along the property line, pretty close to the people in the back. So, I mean, I feel at least in some places, there should be some attempt at erosion control.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any any more grading within the deed restricted area. And so the areas that we're doing the plants shouldn't be too steep, but no doubt, you know, right on the edge of that deed restricted area is where you start some of those slopes down to those home sites. So yeah, that's something that we can look at, Chip, is you know, those areas where we've got the long runs of 1-on-3 slope across those lots. We can look at added some erosion control blankets.
Okay, thank you.
Who else would like to speak?
I do, Peter. I don't know who to give this to. I guess I'll go with Joe first. The area behind 23, 25, 27, and 29, it's a slope down and it's a treed area. That's already been, the fencing has already been started. It's a pretty big area. Who is going to own it? Who's going to maintain it? Would that be something that they would give to the town at a later time? It's right to the east side of the retention. Might be shot behind those 4 houses down in the east corner.
Yeah, Paul, that area, that whole lot there is proposed to be conveyed to the town. You know, when all the infrastructure gets dedicated. That whole lot, including the area of the existing trees to remain.
Okay, so
the entire stormwater management area is fenced. You can see the black posts out there today.
Yeah.
That whole lot is to be dedicated to the town.
Okay, so the town will be, at some point, when this is turned over to us, we will be responsible to maintain that area.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Craig?
Yeah, so I agree with Lou that the warranty needs to be 2 years, and I think it should be 2 years from the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for each of the lots. And I also think it should include the street trees, because at 3.5-inch caliper, some of those are going to die, and I don't think it's fair to throw the onus on new homeowners to have to replace those relatively expensive and large trees. I also agree with Lou that the escrow amount that gets reduced down should be 50,000. And then back to, I think, something that Sean pointed out, the escrow should be a cash escrow. It should not be a bond escrow. It's too hard sometimes for the town to go after a bond escrow. You know,
I think they're proposing a cash escrow.
I just want to make sure that that's where we're headed. And then the last thing I had right now was, can we clarify exactly which lots? So we know which lots they have models under construction on. Do we know exactly which lots are currently under contract? Because we're giving him permission to get moving on those. Obviously, you know, the governor's executive order superseding everything, but ultimately we're giving him permission to move forward on those lots. I want to make sure we know exactly which lots those are, so that we think one thing and they move somewhere else, or that we think it's 5 lots and they start doing something on 7. I want to make sure we're buttoned up on that. That's all. And that's all I've got right now.
Can you rattle those lots off, Sean?
I can't rattle them off, but my suggestion was that we draw a line in terms of the date, draw a line in the sand here that said that any lots that were under contract at the time of the stop work order, to be allowed to continue with those lots as well as the model homes. So that way, if he has gotten other lots under contract while he's been in a stop work condition, you know, it doesn't really, he wasn't able to start work on those anyway. But prior to this, he already had, you know, he was in a position to start work. So if we could restore him back to his condition prior to the stop work order, I think that would be my recommendation. But I don't have that count. I maybe ask Luigi if he knows from ABD.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head either, but I believe it's 73 and 67 are under construction right now. And then I know when I was part of the staff meeting, we did discuss several other lots that were under contract, and we can get a list for you on those.
I know of at least three others, because we had somebody at the last meeting who provided no, I think that might be.
Sure,
Yeah, that was 49,
Yeah, 60, 49, and 54.
60, 54.
60, 49, and 54,
60,
you said?
49, and 54.
Okay. So that would be five, that would be
Okay.
5 homes under construction.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I think at the staff meeting, we also talked about the ones all the way to the left of the page because they bordered the school.
So that would be lots 53, 51, 49, and 47. Again, 49, we already had we're already aware of a contract under that. I think that was Mr. Lockhart's lot that he came and spoke at the last meeting.
So I'm sorry. So what's the status? So 49, I understand, is one of the ones that we got to 5 that were either under contract or model homes. And now
Yep.
we're talking about a couple more. What?
And any of the lots that border the school.
And what was the rep?
47, 51. Oh,
And 53. I think we talked about that, but I think my recommendation remains is that, you know, we limit this to, you know, what was under contract. And again, 73 and 67 are the model homes. You know, 54, I do know that is one of the homes. I believe the person who was under contract with that was at the last board meeting. We do know 49. 60 is probably the one that I don't have anything in front of me. No, I'm sorry. No, we do know 60 because that's also the one that we talked about. You know, there's some trees that are on the home site. So I would agree that I would agree with those 5 sites, 2 model homes and 3 under contract.
Okay. I just don't want us to think it's 5 and then it ends up being 8, because that's not what we're agreeing to.
Right. I think those are identified, and Craig, if you want, okay, we could identify those as the ones that we would allow first until all the work is complete.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean, this is Joe. When I was out there today, there's a board up that shows all the proposed lots, and 6 of them say sold on it. So that's what I was always going by in my notes, is that 6 lots were either sold or under contract.
Okay, anybody else want to speak about the escrow or the length of the warranty?
Yeah, Peter.
Hi, Kath.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear on the lots we're going to let go through once the executive order is out of place, because there seems to be a lot of confusion on it. So it's just going to be the model homes and the lots that were under contract as of the date the stop work order was put in place. Is that where we're going with it?
Well, I think, I'm not sure. I think that's what Sean recommended.
Yeah, because I didn't have the exact addresses. That was my recommendations, that we established that based on the landmark of the stop work order.
Yeah, I just want the board to be clear, because I don't want to have any confusion down the line with the developer. So if that's what it is, that's what it is. But if the board's going to take action on it, I want them to be clear on what they're going to do.
Okay.
Right. And the reason I'll just, chime in here on, why things are under contract is because it may affect, homeowners financing, and they're sort of stuck in the middle here.
Oh, Pete?
Yes, Chip.
Yeah, I expressed some time ago that I also was in favor of a 2-year warranty on this landscaping.
Okay.
Can I say a few things?
Sure.
And I know I wasn't at the meeting, but I did watch the meeting on video, and I, concur with everybody's, general disgust of how this took place. But a couple of things about the landscaping. First of all, in my experience, if a plant's going to die, it's going to die within a 1-year period. Most of the time, if it's going to die for the nursery, it's going to die within the first 3 weeks, and it's going to be gone. So, if you vote on a 2-year warranty, that's fine, but a 1-year warranty typically is more than enough. One thing I think the board needs to understand, and I've talked to Joe about this, to me, this is overkill. I mean, don't get me wrong, I fully understand the developer made a mistake, but if you look at the plantings and how they are in the backyards, that's not going to be very pretty in 5 years. That's going to be so overgrown, because the people are not going to be allowed to trim it, not be allowed to do anything. And I'm not too sure they're going to like the way it looks after 5 years. I'm talking to neighbors on both sides of the property. When you're planting plants so close, all you do is ride around this town and look at a lot of commercial projects where they planted pines and spruces so close. And even on this site here, next to Clay's property, those 7 spruces in the back, some of them were almost dead because they were planted so close. They've almost killed each other in the process. So I just bring that up to the board so that they understand that. My biggest concern though, we're talking about warranting the street trees and we're talking about warranting the big old sugar maples. Almost probably 38 of the 42 sugar maples aren't being planted in the conservation zone. From day one, the people can chop them down and we have no control over that. Street trees, from day one, they can take them down. We have no control over that. So, my understanding is we wanted to preserve the conservation zone. Well, you're putting plants outside the conservation zone that the people are going to have total control over, and we have no control over. And yet you're putting a lot of plants in the conservation zone, which in my view, they're going to grow so dense and so together, they'll ever kill each other in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think we got to be cognizant of that. As far as reducing the escrow, I'm not opposed to it going to the 50,000, but I think if the town does its job in making sure the majority of the work is done before it's reduced to the 25,000, I think that's ample escrow. And other than that, that's about that.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you want to address any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the comments and obviously it's a balance and we try to do what we felt was reasonable. And I agree with the chief, there are some significantly sized trees that are, planted outside of the deed restricted areas. We tried to pick a plant that was very desirable and significantly sized that has enough value to it that we don't think, or we hope, a future landowner is not going to want to see that tree taken down, and that it'll be mutually beneficial to not only the, shielding to the adjacent neighbors, but also look nice within the lots themselves as well. And I agree wholeheartedly about the street trees. There's no restriction that those can't be cut at some point in the future, but I think the way they're laid out and the species that are chosen are very desirable trees. And when you get to be a 3.5-inch tree, you're talking about a tree that's probably valued about $1,000 a piece, and we hope it's significant enough that somebody's not going to want to cut it down at any point in the future, and it'll work hard to try to take care of it. But I appreciate the comments that the plan may be overdone. It's a balance because we understand how perception is going to be when this landscape first goes in. Some people are going to say, wow, I expected it to be a lot more than that. And I agree, over 10, 20 years down the road, some of these plants may fill in and start to choke themselves out. But we're trying to create protect the adjacent residences. So I appreciate the comments though.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
Yeah,
Yes.
I also live in the development, and I haven't seen any of the street trees cut down at all. And there's 89 lots in my subdivision. I haven't seen it.
Okay. Anybody else from the board?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Susan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I just want to make sure that, we know what the plan is for the installation. I don't want to be left to guesswork. And so I just think they should put a plan together and the PDD can approve it and oversee it. So there aren't any more misunderstandings about the plans and the intentions and everything else.
Okay.
Peter, I would just like to make one more thing clear. All right, is that we also have a separate violation proceeding pending in Colonie Town Court. The town is alleging that after we had issued the stop work order, that the developer ignored the stop work order and proceeded to perform work, specifically the National Grid work that was referred to earlier. This has no effect on the town's ability to proceed on the violation proceeding. And we intend on proceeding with the violation as a totally separate and distinct matter. And I just want to make sure that's clear to the board and that it's clear to the applicant as we go forward.
Okay, that raises another issue which I'd like to address, which is a penalty. I personally don't favor a penalty at this point. I think this is an excellent landscaping plan and a very adequate and some have argued more than adequate landscaping plan. I don't know if we have the authority to impose a penalty, but I think, you know, the developer, I think the financial price tag that's gone with this is sufficient so that the developer knows where we stand. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, I will be looking for a penalty in the separate proceeding, you know, so you know that. But to me,
right,
it is a totally separate and distinct issue. This is just resolving the stop work order. And, you know, they're fully aware of the stop work order. And the very following day after a meeting, they had people out there working. And so we filed the violation that day. And this is not going to limit the town's ability to prosecute that violation in any way.
Okay.
That's not part of this plea bargain, if you want to call it. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, do we have a motion? And this is what I suggest. If we take a motion and then we can have somebody describe what they propose for the warranty and for the escrow. So do we have a motion to adopt the subdivision plan that's before us, subject to further comment?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can somebody describe, can somebody make a proposed amendment as to what they think the warranty should be and the escrow amount?
I think I'll step in and start it. I think the warranty for the trees in the back of the lot should be extended to 2 years, and the escrow be $50,000.
Okay, anybody else have any comment on that?
The only things I would add, if that's where you're going to go, is that there will not be any more clearing in the deed restricted areas. I know Joe talked about that. And that once the stop work order is lifted after the governor's executive order is no longer in effect, the contractor will be able to proceed with the model homes and the 3 currently under contract when the stop work order was issued.
Okay, let me clarify. When does he get to start working on the other lots? When the plantings are substantially complete?
Yes.
I think the rear yard landscaping needs to be complete, not substantially complete.
Right, should
Okay.
be complete.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any changes to that motion as stated?
Is the amount going to be changed from 100,000 then decreased to 50,000?
Yes,
Okay,
starts at 100.
okay, that wasn't mentioned. So, and again, I want any plan for the planting to be approved by the planning department.
Okay, so they'll submit a planting plan for the department's approval.
Do
Anything
you
else?
want me to summarize all this? Because I'm taking notes just so we have it for the record.
If you think you can do a good job of it.
I think I can do a great job.
Okay.
All right. So the applicant shall, so here the motion as it is and as amended appears to be that the applicant shall deposit a cash escrow of $100,000 with the town of Colonie, which represents approximately 50% of the estimated value of the remediation plan. The applicant shall remediate the site per the approved landscape remediation plan, including the plantings identified on the planting schedule. The applicant shall increase the size of previous planned street trees from 2.5-inch caliber to 3.5-inch caliber, and that includes the 24 October Glory Red Maples and 24 Bradford Flowering Pears. The applicant shall continue to plant 2 5-foot to 6-foot Norway spruces and 2 dogwoods as previously shown on the quote typical conservation subdivision lot landscaping package plan, end quote. The total plantings up for the site shall be 557 in total. Any deviations from the scheduled plantings must be approved by the planning board or the Planning and Economic Development Department. Remediation work to the rear yards.
Could I add the town attorney? I would say the department that or either the planning board approves the change or you as the department head with the town attorney.
Okay.
Same thing with the timing of it. If they can't get it all in by June 15th.
Do you want this? Do you want my department and the town attorney to deal with the administration of this and the fact that there might be minor changes that are suggested or requested? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll amend that any deviations from the schedule must be approved by the Director of Planning and Economic Development and the town attorney. The remediation work to the rear yards, excluding street trees, shall be completed on or before June 15, 2020. Any extension to this date shall be subject to the approval of the Director of Planning and Economic Development and the town attorney.
Right.
The applicant shall warranty rear yard landscaping for 2 years to begin upon the issuance of certificate of occupancy.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that certificate of occupancy would tie to. We may want to make that upon the lifting of the stop work order on the remaining 19 lots. So it's one defined date.
Okay. Does the board agree with that modification?
Yes, because that coincides with the completion of the landscaping installation.
Correct.
The applicant shall warranty the rear yard landscaping for 2 years to begin upon acceptance of the rear lot remediation and lifting of the stop work order across the site.
That it?
A couple more here. In consideration of the accepted landscape remediation plan and receipt of the cast escrow, the planning board recommends that the stop work order is partially lifted to allow the construction to continue on model homes already started on the existing lots under contract to date, and the installation of all landscaping shown in the rear yards landscape remediation plan. The construction of the homes is limited to the 6 lots that are identified as sold by the builder on the site.
I have one question, Sean.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Once these lots are turned over to the homeowner, they're not supposed to do anything within that conservation zone, correct?
Correct.
So how do we hold a developer responsible if they in turn do something with that? And do you follow? Do you see where I'm going? They see 6 bushes in the backyard, they don't like it, and they yank them out. They're in the conservation zone.
Mm-hmm.
You want the developer to warranty them for 2 years. But if they don't do this, who does that fall on?
Yeah.
Trying to be fair to the developer at this point.
Should it be a deed restriction?
Deed restriction, Sean.
Right. So go ahead. I heard some people chiming in.
Yeah, I would think that you would probably want a deed restriction on, just to make that clear for every lot. There'd be no clearing in the conservation, and have it marked on their building lot plans when they're talking with the builder.
Wasn't that the case already? Yes.
Yeah.
The conservation area is already marked on the stamp plans with the county clerk.
Yeah,
so
we lived this before, Sean. I mean, it's I want to put the onus on the new landowner, okay, a little bit, okay, because I've seen what's happened in the past. Not so much with this. I've seen a lot of encroachment from the other direction. So I just want to make sure that even though it's going to be marked and everything else, that there's no, as we say, no misunderstandings 5 years from now.
Well, the
you know, to kind of get back to what the point Steve made, it is, Silas has a huge interest in making sure that these new homeowners understand that that they can't go in there and pull stuff out. The fact that if somebody does, that Silas has to replace it if it's within the 2 years. Honestly, there's a part of me that says, oh, well, he shouldn't have cut down the trees in the first place, and then this wouldn't be a problem. I mean, I know that's rather harsh, but make sure you explain to people that they can't do it, and hope they don't, as far as Silas is concerned. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that we want is that back buffer area is as close to what it should have been as we can get it. I mean, that's my view on it.
Well, you know, this is a suggestion. We could require that the developer put that in his contracts, and that clause should survive the closing. Anybody like that idea or think?
I like that idea.
I agree with it.
That's fine.
I like that idea. I think will get us where we want to go.
And I agree that it really does put the purchaser on notice.
So we'll require that the builder add a clause into all, I mean, because he's already got 6 under contract. Does it include amending?
Well,
those?
he can notify them and put it in the new contracts.
He hasn't transferred a deed yet on those 6 lots, so he can add a deed restriction.
Well, there already is a deed restriction. There already is supposed to be a deed restriction.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this has already been marked on the approved plans.
It has.
That this is a no build zone. And if it's on the plans on file in the county clerk's office, then it is enforceable against all subsequent owners, purchasers, and the like. The only other thing I would add, Peter, is that I would have the warranty run to both the town and to purchasers of the property, because they will have the most interest in enforcing the warranty.
Okay.
They will be better able to determine if the warranty's been breached. And that secondly, the agreement has to include language that this is all subject to the terms of the executive order.
Yep. Mike, that'll be my last piece in this whole thing is the executive order. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So now I'm just, since this is already deed restricted and is on the plan, we still want language in closings and the closing documents, or are you satisfied?
I like having a clause in the deed restriction. I agree with Kathleen.
So,
and any new purchase contracts.
That way you got it covered both ways.
Okay, because the deeds haven't been written for these. So when those deeds are written, they'll have a clause about the limits of the no clearing in the conservation area.
And it can be as simple as referring them to the note on the map.
Okay. So we'll require the builder shall add a clause into new purchase contracts and all deeds that the lots have a conservation area where no clearing may be performed, and to refer to the maps that are filed with the county clerk. We said once the remediation is complete on all rear yards and following its acceptance by the town of Colonie, that the remedial landscape installation is complete. The stop work order is lifted on the remaining lots and the rest of the site infrastructure. At that time, the cash escrow is reduced to $50,000 until the end of the 2-year warranty period. Within 30 days at the end of the 1 year, or I'm sorry, at the end of the 2-year warranty period, a follow-up inspection shall be done by the town or its town designated engineer to determine if any plants need to be replaced. After 1 year and after the replacement of the plants identified by the town or its TDE, the remaining cash escrow is released. I also recommended that my office be allowed to work with Public Works and the builder to adjust that fence on the stormwater area to be more acceptable to the neighboring property owner.
Sounds good to me.
And then finally,
Sean,
yes,
going back to that, at the end of the 30-day of the 2-year warranty period,
mhm.
did you change in the second sentence there? After, I heard you say after 1 year. Shouldn't it be 2 years?
After 2 years. Thank you, Lou. Okay, and let's see. And this decision does not override or supersede the executive order issued by Governor Cuomo in response to COVID-19, and the builder is subject to all conditions issued under the governor's executive order.
Or any future executive orders.
Or future executive orders.
That it?
That's all I've got. I've got that all written down, and if that's the motion that everybody's agreeable to, I think that's
right. Okay. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you go back, because I don't think it was clear about which properties they can continue the work on. It's any properties up until the time of the stop work order.
Well,
that work. I want to make sure we're clear on that, because it wasn't clear to me.
Joe said he went out to the site and saw that 6 lots were sold according to the board there. So we can either go by that, or we can establish that it's the lot that the work is allowed to continue construction on are the ones that are, well, we said under contract, or
it was you were breaking up. So it was the model homes.
The model homes. And then the homes that are under
or
contract.
Any contracts as of the time of the stop order.
We can do, if you want to do it as of the time
Correct.
of the stop work order. We can do it that way if you prefer. I had amended it to the 6 homes because after Joe's inspection that said that the board at the site said that 6 lots were sold.
So really what we're talking about is 8 total houses here. 6 sold plus 2 models.
No, I think it's 6 total, 2 models
Okay.
plus 4 sold.
Okay, all right. I like that better.
You're probably looking for some response.
Is that okay with, I guess.
I just want it clear. As long as I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're agreeing to. And if it's a total of 6, 2 models and 4 under contract, that's fine. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Yeah, Peter, I think it's in the
And
minutes.
if you're not clear, then
I think it's in the minutes that it's 49, 67, 73, and 60 and 54. 47 is sold, but I think that's sold to the person who originally owned the land. But if you wanted to include 47, that's your 6th.
Steve, I think it's better if we shy away from using numbers because we're not exactly sure. I think we should go with the 2 models and whatever was under contract as of the date of the stop work order. And then
I'm just saying what was under contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
But if you want to say the 6 models, that's fine.
Okay, 6 total, two that are the model homes and 4 that are under contract.
As of the date of the
That he
stop
can
work order.
demonstrate. Yeah, as of the day of the stop work order, that he can demonstrate to the department head.
And just, and just for something obvious in terms of the escrow, it only gets refunded if everything is proper, the plantings are properly installed, et cetera. If not, the money can be used for any replacements, et cetera, in order to fulfill the planting requirements.
Sounds good.
All right, so it'll be the 2 model homes plus the 4 homes under construction, provided that the 2 model homes and 4 homes under contract, provided those 4 homes under contract were under contract prior to the stop work order. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay.
I'd like to just add that the escrow agreement shall be as approved by the town attorney. with whatever safeguards that the town attorney wants in there.
Agreed.
So my first point that the applicant shall deposit a cash escrow, will also attach to that with an escrow agreement as approved by the town attorney.
Right. Anything else?
And just the language that I think that we ended with the executive order, and that's all I've got.
Okay. Anything else, board members? Okay, we have a motion before us. We're going to take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. I don't hear any no's. I'd like to say that for the record. The ayes have it. Okay, Sean and I, if any board members have any feelings about how we should conduct future board meetings, please let Sean and me know, or email the whole board if you want. Sean and I had talked about maybe doing the meetings, if we're going to continue to do them this way, maybe to do them at 6 o'clock, maybe to do them even once a week, because he is starting to build up a backlog. Does anybody have any comments about any of that?
I'm all for the 6 o'clock thing.
Yeah, I like that idea as well.
Because even people at home that want to tune in, I think it'll work for them as well.
I think we got to go over once a week until we get to the point where Sean is comfortable.
And I'd like to suggest that what we do is, because this is a different format, I think if we go to once a week, we may drop the typical caseload by maybe 1 or 2 cases, just so that we're not, here all night.
Yeah, we'll have shorter meetings, but more frequently. We all have a lot of time on our hands, I think. I do. I'm not going out to dinner at restaurants, that's for sure.
And I think we'll talk about the logistics behind that, because I know that we have a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, but we do have some notice requirements for some of those projects. So we'll sort through that and then keep everybody posted. It is our plan in the planning department to certainly, get the 72 hours notice out there. And then for this meeting, we had, our notices out 5 days ahead of time last Thursday. So, I'd like to try to get to that, because that's the notice requirement for our projects for placarding.
Is the next meeting going to be part of the packages that we already received?
I think we have to go. I think I need to talk about to Pete about that. We have I'm not sure yet. Pete, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think we have to go through all the upcoming projects and space them out so that the meetings we're still making good decisions, that they don't last too long. There is a certain cumberness. Yeah, it's a little bit cumbersome, this. So
it is.
Feel free to call Sean or me if you have any opinions tomorrow.
The only other thing I want to add is that, we had number 3 on the agenda, which is my report. I'll be doing that regularly. We do have some open referrals from the town board that we're working through. And so those will also, and that's the other reason why to keep meeting, is because we have other things that are, not just those projects, but other action the town board is asking the planning board to weigh in on.
Okay, if there's no further business, we shall adjourn. Thank you. Everybody stay safe and stay busy if you can.
You also.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sean, Bob Elling says hi.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, board
Tell him I
members.
said hello.